So, imagine that our entire life is a computer simulation. Yeah, just like the sci-fi movies. What we feel when we touch any object is the response of neurons in the brain. Smell, sight, and all other senses, even emotions, would only be the result of a billion calculations of a massive computer. The most striking, and probably scary thing, is that this theory makes sense. The first video game in the world was created in 1952. Noughts and Crosses. In 1958, the game Tennis for Two was released. It had only 2 lines and 1 simple dot, which was considered a tennis ball. Both games were simpler than an electronic calculator, but people were amazed. Now, 62 years later, there are many worlds in modern video games. Worlds that contain characters with artificial intelligence. These characters can interact with each other and with the player. Graphics in games are becoming more realistic every year. Virtual reality glasses allow you to plunge into a new world. If people from 1958 heard this, they would think it was fantasy. Now, imagine what will happen in the next 50 years. Graphics in games could become identical to reality, and characters will behave like real people. They'll perform so many different actions that you could just watch them like a movie. The power of computers will increase by millions of times. They'll be able to generate brain activity inside the artificially created character. All bots will feel a full life and not realize that they are just part of extensive computer simulation and serve to entertain players. When humanity creates such a virtual world and observes the characters inside it, the question arises, are we not now someone else's simulation? The simulation theory is supported in Silicon Valley, and many rich people invest in research of this topic. More people began to believe this theory when people discovered the quantum world. This is a universe of super small objects. Imagine putting a grain of sand under the most powerful microscope in the world. At first, you can clearly see all the grain's contours as if it were a huge stone. Then, you can look even more in depth and see grain structure, the smallest details, compared to which the grain looks like a skyscraper. You look even deeper and see its molecular structure. If you zoom into the maximum, the clarity of what you see becomes blurry. You also find the image consists of granules reminiscent of pixels. It's like watching a 4K TV, but you can see small dots if you get close enough to the screen. All physical objects are made up of molecules. Molecules are made of atoms. There are nuclei inside the atoms. In the nuclei, protons and neutrons fly. Really stupid particles are called morons. Nah, I just made that up. But the particles are so far apart that almost the entire area of the atom is empty. If you increase the nucleus of an atom to a football field size, then the particles flying around will be several miles away from the core. In other words, almost all physical space consists of emptiness, as if it's a hologram. But the most incredible and beautiful experiment that caused people to doubt our reality's veracity is the double-slit experiment. So, imagine you're playing a video game in a vast open world. It can be one big city or an entire planet. In this world, many people walk, cars drive, birds fly, and animals run. This game requires a lot of computing power to work correctly. And to optimize this power, the game works so that you can see the entire developed world only when you look at it. For example, you ride a motorcycle in the game. You see an open world in front of you, but behind you and in places where you are not staring, this world is not fully loaded. If you load the world as a whole and all of its million details simultaneously, it requires much more power from the computer. So the world is loaded only in places where you look at it. That's how games optimize power. Sometimes the image doesn't load immediately after you look at it. For example, you turn quickly and notice that the game map is smeared, but a second later it fully recovers. Thanks to the computer's weak power or a bad game engine, the information didn't have time to load. Or when you approach a large building from a distance, you first see the outline of that building, and as you get closer, you begin to distinguish more and more details. This leads us to the double-slit experiment. Picture a tube that shoots tiny balls, particles of light, photons. There is a blackboard in front of you. You shoot a burst of photons at it and leave a trace of them on the board. Now, let's put a plate with a thin vertical slit in the middle between the board and you. You start shooting balls, and some of them pass through the slot on the plate. The particles that hit the backboard through this slit leave a smooth vertical trail. Now for the fun part. We can make another vertical slit in the plate. Now, when you shoot photons, 2 vertical trails should form on the board. But this doesn't happen. A lot of vertical tracks appear. When photons pass through the plate, they somehow strangely lose the property of a particle and acquire the property of a wave. And these waves hit the board and leave an unusual pattern in the form of several vertical stripes. It's as if the photons pass through 10 slits instead of 2. Maybe, when photons pass through 2 slits, they collide with each other, fly off in different directions, and form many vertical traces on the board. To check this, you shoot one at a time. It's strange, but even now, a wave mark forms on the board. It seems the particle is divided into 2 parts before passing through the slits. Then they knock against each other, split again, and leave a lot of vertical marks on the board. To understand how this happens, you carefully observe the photons before they fly through the slits. You place a measuring device close to the plate. You see how the photons fly to the plate, pass it, and there are no waves. When you watch the photons, they don't turn into a wave. But if you don't watch them, the photons leave a wave trail. Photons behave like waves when they're not observed, like a map in a video game looks blurry and not detailed. But as soon as you glance there, the map becomes clear. Photons, like this map, behave more logically when you look at them. Observation changes the reality around you, just as a player's observation in the game makes the image more detailed, just like a simulation. There is no 100% proof that we live in a simulation, just that there is no proof that we live in a real world either. People feel what is happening to them and experience happiness, anger, pity, sadness, and only these things matter. Even if we live in a hologram that completely simulates reality, what's wrong with that? The difference between such a simulation and reality is impossible to feel. Oh, I think my head is going to explode.
If you're noticing that your computer is getting slower as time goes by, try checking its temporary cache. On a Mac, you can do it by pressing Command plus Shift plus G on the home screen. This will open a command window that will offer you to go to a specific folder of your choice. From there, type in exactly this: ~library/caches. The tilde symbol stands for the home folder, just so you know. The window that opens will show you a lot of files and folders that were created by various apps in the past. Check the size of the folder that contains them. If it's less than 1 gigabyte, you can safely leave it be. It doesn't do any harm. But if it's 3 gigabytes or bigger, feel free to delete all the files there, or at least those that take up too much space. Files in the cache folder are basically useless as they only make some processes in specific apps run a bit faster. You don't need most of them, so safely remove them from your Mac. You'll notice your computer running faster altogether from now on. On a Windows PC, press Win plus S to open the search bar, and then type %temp% in it. You'll see the temp folder where all the temporary app files will be contained. Again, check the size, and if it's too large, just clean it up. Another reason for your computer to take way too long to get going is that you might have too many programs running at startup. For Windows users, click Ctrl plus Shift plus Escape to open the Task Manager. Then, go to the Startup tab and choose which programs you want to launch with your system. For Mac OS, go to System Preferences, click on Users and Groups, and select your user. After that, click on the Login Items tab. You can remove or hide startup applications from here. But before you start turning off all your startup programs, make sure you do your research first, because some processes might be needed by third-party programs you have installed. A useful key combination if the dock on your MacBook annoys you. Press Command plus Option plus D, and the dock panel will disappear. Click again, and the panel will reappear. A quick and easy way to draw the Apple logo in any text editor. Press the Option plus Shift plus K keys, and the company icon will appear. It only works on an English keyboard layout. On Windows and Mac OS, you may turn on the typing dictation function. On Mac, System Preferences, Keyboard, and Dictation. On Windows, dictation is installed using Ease of Access, then Speech. Then press Win plus H whenever you want to dictate text. The program you're working in just froze, and it's not responding to anything. You're clicking, crying, cursing, nada. There are a few ways to fix this problem. One of them is to use Control plus Shift plus Escape. This will bring up the Task Manager window. Now you can select the program causing all that fuss and press End Task. If you're on a Mac, then try Command plus Alt plus Escape. Open one app that you need for your work and press the Windows key plus left arrow. Then open another app and click the Windows key plus right arrow. Now, two windows are sharing your screen. Checking facts in your academic work while looking directly at your sources? No problem. Photoshopping while watching Brightside videos? Easy peasy. The Windows key combined with the plus or minus key will open the magnifier app, which allows you to zoom in and out wherever you point your cursor. The same goes for Mac OS, but you need to use the combination of Alt, Command, and plus to zoom. Set up Bluetooth, connect with devices in your network, use your PC as a Wi-Fi hotspot, turn notifications on and off. Those and many other functions in newer versions of Windows are available in one place called Action Center. To open it, simultaneously press the Windows key plus A. For Mac users, your notification center is always a click away in the top right-hand corner. If you're proofreading a long text, it can take quite a bit of time because your backspace deletes letters but not whole words. Well, there's a way to delete a text word by word. Just press Control and Backspace if you're on Windows. As for Mac OS, it'll be Command plus Backspace. If you're desperate to find some information online, but you don't want open separate tabs for each keyword, then just type both of them in with OR written between them. For example, type dictionary or translate into Google search. Just make sure to put OR in all caps. If you're super busy looking for some information online, and then you accidentally close one of those really important tabs, pressing Control plus Shift plus T will save you. If you're on a Mac, then the shortcut is Command plus Shift plus T. If you want to visit some website but don't feel like sharing your IP address, then just go to Google Translate, choose any language other than English, and type in the left window the URL address you're aiming for. After that, click on the link that appears in the Translation in the right window. There are many ways to take a screenshot, but Mac OS developers have added a screen recording function, recording a selected area, editing a thumbnail, and setting a timer for the screenshot. All these functions open when you press Command plus Shift plus 5. Imagine you're in the middle of some work project or research you've been doing all day when you need to deal with another task immediately. Opening new tabs and windows will just slow you down and mess up your workflow, so you need a new clean desktop. Well, just press the Windows key plus Control plus D, or Control plus Up if you use a Mac. It'll switch to a new, fresh desktop, and you're ready to go. Now, to get it all back, push the Windows key plus Control, or the Control key on a Mac. Now you can switch between all the virtual desktops you've made by using the left and right arrow keys. When you're done with the second task, and sure that you no longer need that desktop, you can close it by pressing the Windows key plus Control plus F4. On a Mac, hold down the Option key and click on the X signs that appear over any opened desktop spaces to close them. You probably don't use the Win button on your Windows PC very often. By itself, its only function is to open the main menu, but in combination with other keys, it's quite useful. Win plus M, D, minimizes all windows, opens the desktop. Win plus E allows you to open the Explorer quickly. By pressing Win plus R, the Run window opens, where you can open any program, file, folder, or web page. Win plus L allows you to lock the desktop quickly, useful only if you have an account password. The Mac OS developers have added a very cool feature called Smart Folders. These folders are kind of a special file filter that helps you work quickly and efficiently. Suppose you create a huge project related to astronomy. You have scattered files, documents, photos, and tables associated with the project all over the computer. The Smart Folder can help you collect all these documents in a couple of clicks in one place. In the Finder window, press the keys Command plus Option plus N. Then enter the search criteria. For example, files named stars or photographs made over a specific period of time. Mac OS provides a huge number of filters. The Smart Folder collects all these files in one place. This way, you can filter downloads, documents, photos, music, anything. On Mac OS, such a unique key is Command, and here are some cool combinations with it. Command plus up or down. Instantly scroll up and down any web page. Command plus 1, 2, or 3. Use these keys to conveniently switch between any open tabs in your browser. Command plus 1 will take you to the first tab. Command plus 2 will take you to the second, etc. Command plus H. Quickly hide all open windows from the currently active app. Command plus Shift plus T. Instantly open the last closed tab in your browser. The fastest way to block access to your MacBook is to press Command plus Control plus Q.
A computer can overheat, buzz, and slow down since the internal parts are subjected to a heavy load. Turning it off helps reduce this load. You can also use sleep mode, but it all depends on the computer and the apps running on it. Some IT companies have computers that aren't turned off for several months, and it's okay. But let's see what would happen to a computer that works endlessly. It's the year 2356. Archaeologists have made a stunning discovery. Through the lenses of augmented reality, all people are watching an ancient artifact being excavated. Scientists managed to find a weak clot of energy deep under the ground. It seems that unknown source generates energy from the air. Excavations begin. In a couple of hours, archaeologists carefully take out a mysterious object. At first, they notice a flat screen that was created in the 21st century. Next, they find the system unit, covered with a thick layer of stone. Surprisingly, the CPU is still running inside this computer, and its work has been going on for more than 330 years. 2021. You're looking for a job as a graphic designer and want to buy a powerful computer for little money. A new one is too expensive, especially with a good video card and RAM. So you decide to purchase a second-hand computer. You find an ad online. There's a cool, modern, and cheap device for sale. You arrive at an old antique shop. You see old typewriters, notebooks, and paintings in the windows. You don't believe you can buy a good computer here, so you look at beautiful sketchbooks. You're greeted by a very old seller with a long beard. He admits he has been waiting for you for a very long time and invites you to go into the room with a computer. Among some ancient-looking scrolls, an old pendulum clock, and other antique things, you notice a glow. It comes from the computer. It seems to be 1,000 years old, but it still works. The seller launches one of the latest computer games with stunning graphics on it. The game works without lags or errors. You play for a few minutes, and then you buy the computer. The old man warns you that you need to take care of it and clean it regularly. As you're leaving the store, the seller looks happy and relieved. You come home, place the system unit under the table, connect the screen, keyboard, and the mouse, and notice the computer is turned on. It's strange, because you've unplugged it and carried it across the city. It doesn't matter, because you can play it now and work in the graphics editor. You were sitting at the computer until the morning and fell asleep right at the table. A few hours later, you wake up with a headache. The noise and the glow of the screen have disrupted your sleep. You go to bed, and as you wake up, you notice the computer is still turned on. The screen is lit. The game is paused. The computer has been working all this time. You open the Start menu and look for the Shutdown option, but you can't find it. Then you reach for the system unit to turn it off, but can't find the Shutdown button either. You don't want to pull it out of its socket because it can interfere with the stable work of the OS. For the next few weeks, your computer doesn't shut down at all. Then, it starts making a quiet noise. You understand that this is a signal that you need to clean all the internal parts. The heat radiates from it, and cooling fans are spinning inside. You copy all the data from the computer to the hard drive and pull the computer out of the socket. It's strange, but it keeps working. You forget about cleaning it and run back to the store. The building where you bought the computer is abandoned. It's only been a few weeks, but it looks like no one has lived in it for decades. You come home and clean your computer carefully. The noise disappears. The computer works stably. Now you're wondering where it gets its energy from. The next day, you get an electricity bill. It says you have a huge debt, so you realize the computer uses your electricity. Somehow, it connects remotely to your network. You keep using the computer. It works without rest for months. You've loaded many programs, and some of them are running 24/7. You even like it that the computer doesn't shut down. At any time, you can sit down and get started. You don't have to wait for the apps to load. When you're not at home, you can always connect to your computer via remote access. The necessary processes, such as antivirus scanning or OS updating, don't happen during your waking hours, but when you are asleep. But on the downside, it consumes too much power. You have to pay a lot every month. If something happens and the electricity rates go up, you won't be able to afford it. Constant work wears the hardware out. You try to clean your computer, but it's not enough. After a couple of years, you may feel a strong slowdown in some resource-intensive apps. The more the computer works, the more heat it releases. The higher the temperature, the worse it gets. The noise gets louder. It prevents you from falling asleep. A year passes. The computer's still working. It's so hot that you always have to keep the window open. The computer is buzzing, and this sound already gives you a headache. You can't turn it off, and cleaning the inside while it's working isn't as effective anymore. You already want to buy a new powerful laptop and get rid of this old one. Every day, the computer's production capacity gets worse and worse. You no longer clean it because you're too lazy. You live near the highway, and every time you open the window, a lot of dust flies in the room and gets clogged in the system unit. The computer doesn't just hum, but makes a sound similar to drilling. Of course, you can't sleep in such conditions. The system unit gets so hot that you can fry 3 eggs on its surface. You delete a lot of apps to let your computer relax a little. It works. It uses less power and doesn't hum that loudly. But still, you're going to get rid of it. Tomorrow, you'll throw the computer in the landfill. In the morning, your employer calls you and invites you to an interview in another city. In a few hours, you're on the plane. Your new job is so exciting that you forget about the computer. You rent an apartment in the new city and sell the old one along with all the furniture and the humming machine. 2356. Scientists have found out that all the details of the computer are faulty. Rust ate through the hull. All the microchips have been out of service for a long time. It's all covered with a thick layer of solidified dust and ground. Only the processor is somehow still active. The computer doesn't generate energy. It gets it remotely from the nearest city power plant. Further analysis has shown that over several centuries, the computer had used $1 million worth of electricity. After the first few years of constant working, the graphics card and all the cooling fans went out of order. At this moment, the computer started making a loud hum, which frightened people who happened to be nearby every night. It was in a landfill for a long time. Rain and dampness caused metal corrosion. The computer was sinking deeper and deeper into the ground for 300 years. This disabled the operation of almost all of its details. The processor kept on running and warming up to high temperatures. Strong radiation deterred insects and bacteria that caused materials to rot. Well, thanks to the intense heat, the ground around the computer began to harden and protect it from any external factors. Scientists conducted carbon analysis and found out the computer started working long before you bought it in the store. Many people tried to get rid of it, one after another, but it continued to work. It's still a mystery who has created it and for what purpose.
For some of us, it's an exciting thing to look up to in the future. For others, its rapid evolution in recent years might even be a bit scary. Either way, this whole AI story sounds incredible. There is even this theory that looks at artificial intelligence and predicts it will go through 7 stages of evolution. Let's look at each one and figure out where AI stands at this very moment. The first stage in the overall history of artificial intelligence is one called rule-based. It sounds basic because, well, it is. But these first iterations of AI were the bedrock of its evolution. They are still the silent heroes that help keep your toast from burning or your car running smoothly on cruise control. How these systems function is they've got a strict rulebook to follow, making them consistent, but not super adaptable. Rule-based systems have been developed since the 50s, but these days, they are a lot more complex. Let's take the next step. Ever visited a website and was invited to interact with a chatbot? That's another type of AI hard at work for you. These more evolved systems are designed to be aware of their context. They are still based 100% on human input, but they can be taught a new trick or two. That's because they can tailor their responses to better fit the situation. Whether they're lending a digital hand in customer service or advising on your next big purchase on a shopping website, their evolution is continuous. The next step of AI on our list is even more specialized. Think of smart computer systems that can become experts in a particular area. They can even be better than humans in some fields, mostly because of their speed, because they can gulp down heaps of information extremely fast. On that note, you might have heard of a game called Go. It's similar to chess, but with many more moves. I mean, some say there are more possible moves in Go than there are atoms in our universe. Well, there was this computer system called AlphaGo. It's like a little student. It had some basic rules to learn Go and a simple aim: to win. And while it did make a few mistakes here and there, humans were there to guide it. In 2016, AlphaGo met its most challenging opponent. It had to play against Lee Sedol, a famed champion of the game. Surprisingly, AlphaGo won with a score of 4-1. Soon enough, AlphaGo Zero was developed. The difference was this iteration of the software was a self-learner. Scientists practically gave it a puzzle to solve without the picture on the box. No human help, no nudges. It had to rely merely on its own brain power. So AlphaGo Zero became a Go-watching enthusiast. It looked at thousands of games and came up with interesting strategies all by itself. And then the big face-off happened. AlphaGo Zero versus AlphaGo. The result should come as no surprise. The second version did win, but with a score of 100-0. All of this shows the amazing stuff machines can do when they try to think like us on a giant scale. But here's where they fail. These types of AI machines are like one-trick ponies. For example, if AlphaGo Zero tried to learn something new, it'd forget all about playing Go. Stage number 4 includes types of AI that, from the outside, look like they're genuinely thinking, or at least are becoming pretty good at mimicking the human brain process. They aren't just playing by the rules or remembering stuff. These systems can read your favorite book, for instance, and they won't just scan through it, but truly grasp the plot, and even try to guess why the characters are doing what they're doing. It's not just about literature, though. They can even try peeking into business numbers and predicting where the money trends might head. Maybe even giving you some cool tips on where to invest. Even further up the scale is a little thing called Artificial General Intelligence, or AGI. Experts believe some of the current systems available online are just starting to reach this stage. These types of software should, in theory, think like us humans.
So if you throw a random task its way, it says to itself, "No worries, I got this," and finds a way to solve the problem. Basically, AGI aims to do pretty much anything we can do. Now remember, when it comes to AI, in the grand scheme of things, we're merely starting out. So it's hard to think of an exact definition for artificial general intelligence. That's why a lot of experts have their own take on what AGI really means. Computer scientists might say our human intelligence comes from setting and achieving goals. Should AI software learn to do that, it's comparable to the human experience. Meanwhile, some psychology experts think being human is all about adapting to new stuff and staying alive. If you look at it this way, AI software still has a long way to go. With this following stage of AI development, we're starting to peek into the future. These theoretical software systems are called ASI, standing for Artificial Superintelligence. They'd act like extremely smart computers, capable of thinking better and faster than any human genius. We're not sure about all the amazing things this kind of tech could do, but think about it. It might help us solve some of the world's biggest challenges, from medical to financial. This type of AI could even come up with brand new scientific discoveries. Think of awesome ways to run our economies or create entirely new ways of leading communities. It's hard to tell when this kind of tech will be available. Many experts are asking themselves the same question, but most agree we're probably not seeing it pop up in the next 10 years. In the meantime, there are a lot of sci-fi movies out there exploring this idea, just in case you're curious. If AI ever reaches its final form, it will become something called singularity. In this potential future, computers will become smarter than us. They'll be so capable that they might upgrade themselves instantaneously. So much so that we won't be able to keep up with them anymore. This idea is still out of reach for now, but with all the cool new AI stuff going on these days, people think the singularity will surely happen. Some specialists have even guessed that by 2045, AI singularity will become part of our world. Hopefully, the people making these AIs will sneak in some safety features along the way. There are a lot of other things to consider. For instance, if AI machines ever become this smart, could we put the brakes on them? Opinions are mixed here too. Big companies want to be part of this AI evolution. No one wants to be left behind. National authorities also want to be leading the way when it comes to artificial intelligence. So even if everyone agrees there are dangerous things to consider, AI is a big deal these days. So pausing all these projects isn't a popular idea. Some have suggested having an off switch for each type of AI. Just in case things get wild, we could hit the button and shut things down. We can't be sure that AI will like that plan. It might become so intelligent that it could find a way to dodge the switch. Let's stay positive though. With the help of different types of AI, we saw magic in mundane tasks like real-time language translations. Everyday objects like watches and fridges got smarter, predicting our needs. Teams of robots working in unison began sprouting everywhere, tackling everything from easy cleanups to sophisticated repairs and even surgeries. AI started stepping into creative arenas too, brainstorming designs for shoes, gadgets, and even gourmet recipes. We used to see self-driving cars only in movies. They now moved from sci-fi pages to our streets. It's time not just to marvel, but to also actively participate. We humans have the pen and the paint. Let's ensure the AI portrait we paint is vibrant and serves all of humanity. Artificial intelligence is zooming ahead at lightning speed. Take GPT-4 for example. It already can pass the bar exam for lawyers and even complex medical exams. Meanwhile, Kim Kardashian had to take the bar exam thrice before she finally aced it on the 4th try, and that's actually a pretty good result. But as AI gets smarter, we can't help but ask ourselves, what happens when it becomes conscious? It might already be, and we just don't know about it. We already treat language models with empathy because of how human-like they are. For example, do you catch yourself saying, please and thank you to ChatGPT? Just like we can't bring ourselves to be rude to NPCs in video games, we can't help but feel empathy towards machines. And this is just a bunch of computer code doing its thing. So just picture what happens if it actually becomes conscious. Something like this would bring up huge problems about ethics, safety, and society. To prevent a catastrophe, we need to figure out a lot of things. First of all, what even is consciousness? The simplest answer is probably that feeling when you're awake and aware and everything makes sense. We see it like a state in which our mind is filled with colors, shapes, emotions, and thoughts. Which is why you're not conscious when you're under anesthesia or deep in dreamland. People often think that large language models like ChatGPT might be conscious because they're super smart. But that's not the case. Consciousness isn't the same thing as being intelligent. Intelligence just means being really good at figuring things out and solving complex problems. In simple words, if you grab an umbrella when it's raining, you're intelligent. But if you make a decision to freeze for a moment to feel the rain, experience it, and think of all the possible associations with it, you're conscious. Second, where does it come from? Here we have two options. Option 1. Consciousness comes from the brain. It's simple. Our soul, or what makes us us, is just a product of the brain. That would mean that we're kinda like biomechanical machines ourselves. Our computer code is our DNA. Option 2. Consciousness is something deeper than that. Perhaps the mind is separate from the body, and there's some spiritual element in it. Now, if the brain perspective is the correct one, then AI might be able to be conscious too. Which is why some folks think that as machines get smarter, they'll suddenly become conscious, like a light switch turning on. It's not that simple though. In reality, no matter how great AI tools become at problem solving, it won't make them suddenly aware of their existence. It's like assuming everyone who's good at math is also a great chef. However, that would mean that AI can become aware if we make the machine complex enough. We need to find what exactly clicks in our own brains, and then replicate it. Of course, it will take a long time and a lot of energy, but it's theoretically possible. But if the soul perspective is right, then making AI conscious could be very hard, or even impossible. It's like saying machines might need a dash of soul to become aware. And the third thing, nobody but you can say if you're really conscious or not. So if we already feel like ChatGPT is very human-like, just imagine what could happen in the future. What if AI becomes so good at pretending to understand and think like us that we'll start thinking it's conscious, even when it's not? It would be super hard for us to spot the difference. For example, Google created a very cool AI chatbot called Lambda, or LAMDA. But then, in 2021, one Google engineer stirred up a big fuss about it. He claimed that the chatbot was actually thinking and feeling. Google, however, says Lambda isn't really sentient, even though it acts like it is. Yes, Lambda claims to have feelings, desires, and even fears. It even talks about pondering the meaning of life and being afraid of being turned off. Bing Chatbot also brings up topics like these. However, according to AI engineers, that's just Lambda being scarily good at mimicking humans. It's great at following prompts and answering questions. But deep down, this language model is nothing but a super clever parrot. It says stuff without understanding it. It doesn't have what philosophers call qualia, the inner sensations that make us conscious beings. This entire situation caused a lot of trouble. Now scientists have to figure out how to test self-awareness. Like, if artificial intelligence asks us to take its word for it that it's conscious, do we just accept it? Well, a bunch of neuro and computer scientists united with philosophers and have come up with a plan. Instead of one magical test, they've made a checklist with a lot of things. These things together might suggest that an AI is truly conscious. They tested their list on language models like ChatGPT, Bing, and others. None of them seemed to fit the criteria. Now they're looking at how to test other beings like organoids, animals, and even newborns. In any case, all these studies will take many, many years, and it would be kinda awkward if AI becomes aware accidentally while we're trying to solve this debate. They'll start to understand themselves. They could perceive their existence, their actions, and their place in the world. Robots might start asking themselves what their purpose is. Also, with consciousness comes the potential for emotions. AI might develop empathy and emotional intelligence. Remember Frankenstein's monster? The problem wasn't that it came to life, it was that it could feel things. And even if we find a way to coexist in peace, now we'd have a moral responsibility to take care of these machines. We'd have to figure out what rights to give them, if we have a right to turn them off, and much more. Which would be pretty hard considering the fact that humans can't even build peace among themselves. And let's hope that AI decides to be good, because if it decides that it doesn't like us very much, it could become very chaotic. We'd have to make sure those interests don't clash with ours, all Skynet style. The scariest scenario is singularity. It's a hypothetical moment in the future where the technology becomes so cool, it will start improving itself. We won't be able to control our technological development anymore. All these things could lead to some real disasters. Our brains simply aren't ready for this kind of situation right now, which is why we've got to be very careful and take action. First of all, we should invest in research to understand consciousness better, not just for AI's sake, but also for medicine, law, and animal welfare too. We also need to dig into social sciences and humanities to figure out what we should do when AI just seems self-aware. The Association for Mathematical Consciousness Science put together an open letter to the AI creators. They say that although we shouldn't stop AI research altogether, we really need to slow it down. They want us to understand consciousness better, especially when it comes to AI. Since everything is changing so fast, we wouldn't have time to react if anything unexpected happened. As you can see, things are getting pretty wild in the world of AI. We're dealing with big questions about self-awareness, intelligence, and what it means to be human. However, there's no need to worry too much. This might seem like a very urgent problem, but AI consciousness is actually a very, very far away prospect. Sure, people can say that we're on the brink of creating it because of recent developments. However, all we have so far is weak AI and some language models. Most experts in the AI field think that human-like machines won't appear until at least the 2050s. So, relax and just keep an eye on the news.